Namaste, everyone. Greetings. It is great to be here with you again on this special day for our Satsanga. And I want to spend a little time speaking to you about the importance of sadhana, or what is defined as spiritual practices or spiritual disciplines. In the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the Raja Yoga branch of yoga, the term chitta is used to define the mind, all aspects of the mind, all dimensions of the mind, from the waking state to the deep sleep to the subconscious dream state. All of this encompasses what the mind is. And basically we have the mind, or the chitta, so that we can have enjoyment of the world, enjoy the world, its pleasures, bhoga, and so that we can experience apavarga. Apavarga in yoga is defined as the ability to overcome the fetters, the fluctuations of the mind, so that we can achieve freedom or liberation. That is, the whole intention of yoga is to free us from the mind, its conditions, and the entire concept of what is the world process of being born, chasing desires, ignoring our true essence and what the purpose of life is. And then we go off, chase one desire, that creates conditions, associations, belief systems. This leads to great suffering. And every human being repeats this over and over and over again. So in many ways, it's sad, and it is a tragedy when we see life and the amount of suffering that exists in the world, and the amount of violence that exists in the world. Not only between humans, but human beings and the natural world. And if you look at the natural world, and you look at the path of humans, it's so destructive. Everywhere that the human being goes, there is destruction. We move into a new area of the world or to a new land, and we start destroying it, disturbing the ecology, killing the animals, all for the pleasures of our life, for the senses, all for the idea that that is life. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to survive. We're supposed to enjoy this world and nothing else. But yoga dedicates, the Raja Yoga path dedicates a whole chapter in this sacred text called Sadhanapada, or the chapter of spiritual practices, spiritual disciplines, and their virtues, and their techniques, and how they can work for us to achieve the goal of life, to achieve the purpose of life. So this is probably my favorite section in the Raja Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, because it explains what we have to do and what practices can lead us to liberation. And they're right there. So this Sadhanapada begins with basically two perspectives on what leads to success. First, the importance of continuity of practice. Are we practicing consistently? Are we applying the methods and the techniques and the principles, the natural laws? Are we following these on a moment-to-moment basis, on a daily basis? And that's where this work begins. This continuity is a living practice. It's a living relationship with, first and foremost, your own body, treating it in a respectful way, in a sacred way, in a harmonious way. And then secondly, once that relationship is established through self-care, through proper diet, exercise, and disciplining the mind and body, both of them require harnessing. Establishing do's and don'ts, if you will. And once that's established, then equally important is the relationship we have with the external world. And most particularly, this refers to nature and the five elements: the earth, our connection to the earth, to the soil, to the rocks, the mountains, rivers, oceans, the elements. The water. Water is important. The world is made up of a majority of water. Look at the massive bodies of water that we have, not only in the oceans, but even within land structures. We have lakes, we have water that flows down from mountains. And isn't it interesting that humans are drawn to water more than any aspect of nature? The highest and most expensive real estate is near water, with views of water, bodies of water, because there is a vibration. There's an energy. There is an emptying of the mind that occurs when we stare at the water, when we're in that proximity to the water. It expands the mind. And there's something that it does to help us to go beyond the mind, go beyond the limitations of the mind. Limitations of time and space. This is why the water element or the ocean is always correlated to Brahman, the concept of God, the creator. And the idea of water being stable is an important aspect relative to Ayurveda. Because when the mind is disturbed, it lacks the stability and the heaviness of water. So we can see this in the Vata type person who's always looking at the phone, who cannot concentrate, who cannot complete a task. And this is where concentration becomes one of the primary themes of yoga. A concentrated mind is a successful mind. A focused mind brings success. And what is success? The capacity to be still, to go beyond the disturbances of thoughts, emotions, conditions. And a concentrated mind allows us to achieve tasks, projects, goals that we have. So the more disturbed the mind, the more complicated our health is, because the mind disturbs the nervous system. This disturbs our sleep, and in turn, this destroys our immunity. So the stillness, the focus, the presence of the mind is vital to health, to well-being, and to knowing that when we are stable, things are actually flowing. And that stability comes through connection to what is real. And removing or negating what is unreal. And water is vital to that in individuals who have vata in their constitution, or air. And we can see this in various astrological charts, those that may be of a Gemini sign, or have a strong Saturn or Mercury influence in the chart. They tend to be very active mentally, talk a lot. And this chatter is important to suppress. And I'm not meaning to stuff it away, but to push it aside and realize, do I need to talk so much? Do I need to be stimulated so much? So push that aside, suppress that a bit, put it in its place so that you can allow the tranquility of the soul, attain the power that the mind has when it is still, by connecting to the water element. Fire is the heat, the importance of metabolism, the importance of awareness. And being aware is established, or growing awareness is established as the mind becomes calmer and calmer. We see things we couldn't see before, because we're removing the clouds, the conditions, the things that the mind becomes associated with. When they are removed, we have clarity. Clarity is similar to the sky. When you see a clear sky, there's something very appealing to that. There's something very attractive about the clarity of the sky, seeing the blue and the light that comes through when there are no clouds. Isn't it magnetic when the rays of the sun are shining, when that light is out? We feel drawn to be out. We feel drawn to be in the presence of the sun. Agni is the light of the sun, the rays of higher consciousness that attract us to what is real. That light is within us. And when we feel that attraction, when we feel that affinity, that connection to divinity, we have to pursue it. We have to follow it and not ignore it. When we ignore it, this is when we disempower the soul, we disconnect from our true essence, and we give rise to the cycles of birth and death, samsara, the wheel that the Buddha referred to. And it's one thing after another. We chase this thinking this is going to fix it. And again, it's the same result. And we do it again and again. Names and forms, attractions, distractions, dazzle and frazzle. And this is the world. When you see the world, one news story after another, one drama after another. And where does it take this world? Into chaos, into disease. Far, far from love and contentment. Because it's taking us away from us, from what's inside of us. And so the whole system of yoga and this idea of continuity of practice, the consistency of practice, is about doing these things consistently, connecting to these elements, the earth, the water, the fire, the air, the fresh air, prana, the environment, and recognizing that our environment is the most powerful thing in our life. What we surround ourselves with is the most influential aspect of our life. And this is what I refer to as pranification. How are we pranifying our lives? What is the food that we're taking in? Because there is prana in food. Is it organic? Is it fresh? Or has it been in a refrigerator or a freezer for days and days? What about the water? Water has prana. Water should be exposed to the elements. This is why we endorse the importance of drinking out of a copper vessel. Copper grounds the water, and it helps to change the alchemy of the water. And it allows the water to become more absorbable, especially the minerals in the water. So prana comes in the form of water, food, and oxygen. And it is being measured that the best air is nearest bodies of water, near the ocean, near a river. And this is why people that live near water look healthier. They live longer. Because health is about circulation. Death is about stagnation of energy. The word in Ayurveda, dosha, refers to stagnant, heaviness, darkness. And this is what we see in life. People become clustered in little boxes, living in certain places. I have to be here. This is where my life will be successful. These are where my friends are. We have to stop boxing our lives. Make this whole world your teacher. Make everyone your friend. Make everyone your family. Let us all live together and not confine ourselves to certain people, places, and things. Be free. Live. Be alive. Celebrate life. Celebrate your divinity. That is the purpose of your life. So, continuity of practice. This is the cornerstone, the bedrock of sadhana. The second aspect, which is a big theme, especially in the Yoga Vashista, which is the great yogic text about Guru Vashista and the relationship he has with his disciple, Rama. And Rama, in the early parts of the Ramayana, the story demonstrates that Rama begins to develop this kind of distaste for the world, this kind of rebellion for the world. This is termed as vairagya. If we start to feel this kind of rebelness come up, that I don't want to follow the rest of the world. I want to live in a different way. Everyone is going that way. I want to go this way. That type of attitude is showing the first steps, first indications that we're moving in an evolutionary direction. This vairagya is central to the path of illumination. And recognize that. Do you feel more distrust from the world, from the stories, propaganda, and media? And you see that their means are so superficial. It is just simply to gain for themselves. Greed is their power. That's what they ride. But the power to overcome that, as Vedanta teaches us, is the power of riding on the lion. To have courage to say, no, I'm not going to follow that path. To say, no, I know there's another way. I know there's a better way. I know that there is a way that embraces the law of reciprocity. That means that what is good for me and whatever I am doing in my life equally serves me and benefits the lives of others. That is Dharma. And we know we're living our Dharma when we're living in a reciprocal way. Whatever we take, we're giving back. And whatever we're given, we're giving back. And this exchange is constantly occurring on a moment-to-moment basis throughout our lives. Every day, this exchange is occurring back and forth. We're not here to just take from the world. We're here to give to this world. We live in harmony with this world. And Ayurveda teaches us that path. So these two sort of cornerstones, the continuity of practice, consistency, it's got to be done daily. Every 24-hour day is one mini year, you could say, or what the Vedic tradition refers to as a yuga, as a cycle. So what we do each day influences the next cycle, which is the 7-day cycle, the week. Then what we do within each week collectively influences the next cycle, which is the moon cycle, the month. And then we'll tend to see a pattern in the collective energy that we create in that month shapes the next cycle, which is the cycle of the seasons, the 4 primary seasons. There are 2 equinoxes, right, in the fall and in the spring. And there are 2 solstices, very powerful shifts. Winter solstice in December marks the end of the darkening period, Dakshinaya. This is the darkening period. And that day in December is the first day of the rising sun, of the sun moving and taking its northern course, Uttarayana. So these solstices are very, very powerful. And these 2 plus 2, these 4 cycles each year shape the year, the entire year. And you can look back at your life and see how each year has a theme, a pattern, if you will. And then the year leads to the life cycle, and there are 3 primary life cycles. The first cycle is the early youth to about 16 to 20 years. That's the water or kapha cycle. Then from 20 to about 50 is the fire cycle. This is the pitta period, where we're go get 'em, go do things, achieve things, work. I have goals. I have things to do in this world. And then after post 50, it's the vata, the air cycle, where we start to detach. we start to feel lighter. We start to expand our awareness, our understanding. We remove ourselves from the confines of time and space. So these cycles we can see in various aspects of our life. So the vairagya is about developing a detachment, dispassion, not to keep riding the highs and lows of life. Big deal, things may not be going so good. That's in the outer world. And avoid overjubilation when things are really good. Be grateful. Offer pranams, reverence for those cycles, because these are all astrology cycles as well. There are many cycles within the astrological shifts that are occurring that are influencing our life. So that's on top of the cycles I just discussed. And I won't go into them in this satsanga, but we'll discuss those in another period. So all life is cycles. And developing dispassion is important because it keeps us where? Steady. Keeps the mind stable, neither up nor down, but that equanimity of the mind on a moment-to-moment basis, on a relationship-to-relationship basis, from place to place. And lastly, there is this important principle of surrendering to God, of learning to become an instrument in God's hands. That there are broader cycles, and many different cycles influence us in different ways, and we don't know what karmas are going to come up. We don't know what challenges are going to come up. This is what I often say to people that take advantage of their health and abuse it with alcohol, with substances of any type, anything that disturbs consciousness, awareness, and that invokes gross functions and disturbs the equanimity and the balance of the nervous system. This is a tragedy. An aggressive shortcut to divinity doesn't exist. It's a long and arduous path to peace, to well-being. We have to work hard at it. And we can't keep searching for things outside of ourselves, things that we put into ourselves as solutions, as resolutions, as ways to find contentment. And that's why this path and this ability to surrender also brings in the importance of simplicity. Living more simply. Making choices in our life that are more practical. And I often see this in my counseling practice when I ask people about exercise or what they do to take care of themselves. And I realize how complicated their ability to do those things. They move to areas or live in areas that are not supportive to health. Or they drive to a yoga or a fitness place that's very far away. We have to make things practical. We have to make things simple in our lives because the world process is tricky. It's complicated. It's devious. So we have to outwit it. We have to use these wisdom principles to our advantage so that we can find a sure path, a path that is efficient, and a path that is the gentlest on this earth. Krishna mentions that to Arjuna in the Gita, that the one that is very dear to him is the one that least disturbs the world. Be gentle with nature. Let us stop harming our animals. Let us stop harming each other. Let us say good things. Let us look at the good and see the good in all living beings. And if we can begin to apply even just some of these techniques, they can bring us great success. So, in this Sadhanapada, this chapter on discipline, spiritual disciplines, Patanjali in his first sutra refers to tapa, swadaya, ishwar, pranidan, kriya yoga. So, the first, tapa, means the importance of austerity. What are your austerities? Are you doing some fasting? Are you taking some silence? Are you turning off your technology, computers and telephones? This is important, especially at night before sleep, to cleanse the mind. So developing these austerities is crucial. Swadhyaya, self-study, the importance of inner reflection, contemplation, and study the self. Who am I? What is the purpose of my life? What am I here to do? And Swadhyaya also encourages us to study the sacred books, the scriptures, the great teachings. That is what's beautiful about the Vedic tradition. Not one book, not 10, not 100, thousands upon thousands of great, great scriptures, stories, principles, truths that help us to find the path to illumination. So Swadhyaya says, study these books, read these books, do mantra, recite those sacred words that connect you to the divine. Because these practices bring us connection to the swa, the self, the capital S self. When we hear people talking today, language is so poor, sadly, today. The use of words is tossed around with no real understanding of their meaning. We refer to all types of people as guys. Hey guys, how are you? Rather than souls, neither male nor female, lights, souls. Namaste. That's why I love the namaste of this tradition. The bowing, the offering of reverence. And we see that not just in the Indic culture, but it is throughout Asia. Bowing of the head. I recognize that what is within me is also in you. We are the same. So, tapa, swadhyaya, ishwara pranidan, trust. If you're doing the work and you're doing your best, you're doing your sadhana, you're practicing consistently each day, trust that God is taking care of you. You're doing your part. You're reciprocating your appreciation for life. You're not abusing your health. You're doing your daily yoga. You're eating right. You're spending time in positive community. in a good environment, then surrender and know that the divine will respond. And become an instrument to serve others. Let the divine use you as an instrument to teach others, to help others, to cook for others, to listen to others. This is Ishvara Pranidhan. Recognize that there is an Isha. There is a Lord in everyone and every living things. And appreciate that how you recognize the divine may be different than how another recognizes or sees their Isha. And so then the last of this first sutra is Kriya Yoga. Purification through action. Now, there are many types of actions or cleansing practices in the yoga system, breathing kriyas, postures that help us to cleanse and remove impurities in the spine or tension in the spine. Mantras. So this is the broader definition of what Kriya means. It is used in different lineages. But there is also a reference here that Patanjali is making to the Kriya Yoga of Babaji. This ancient science that Babaji revived, that was alive and well practiced throughout the Vedas. Krishna refers to it. Great teaching of the light, Vivasat, the sun god. That this teaching is born of the light. And this is a specific technique, a specific breathing exercise, Kriya Yoga, that destroys karma, that burns karma in the Shushumna, in the spine, in the chakra system. So this Kriya is important primarily in removing and destroying what Patanjali teaches as the kleshas, the 5 afflictions. The first is avidya. We ignore ignorance. We ignore our true nature. We forget that we're spirits having a temporary human experience. We're not bodies. We're not minds. We have to take care of them. We have to cleanse them. But that's not what we are. That's not what defines us. And as long as we continue to ignore our divine essence, this creates conditions. The next klesha, ashmita, egoism. This is what I am. I am a teacher. I am a businessman. I am entitled to this. And this conditions the mind over many incarnations, many births. And yes, we carry these qualities when we come into a new life. We can see that some of these qualities we share with our parents. We have the similarities that are coming through from our 2 parents, but that's only a portion. There are aspects in our personality, in our conditions, that are very different from our parents. And we can see this in the children in each family. One is very different from another. One has talents in one area and one has very different talents in another area. That is the karma of their past lives. And these conditions develop as egoism, because we ignore and we give more association, identification with names and forms of the ego. And then we have raga, attractions. I want this, I want that. I need this, I need that. So I say to you, distinguish very clearly between your needs and your desires. Before you go on and begin to chase something and seek something, ask yourself, is this a need or is this a desire? Because our body has needs, right? We need to go to the bathroom. We're hungry. We need sunlight. That is a truth. Can't live this whole world, all living things depend on the light of the sun. We're drawn to the sun. It is the magnet of our soul. So, distinguish, is this a desire or is this a need? Before we go out and try and fulfill it. Because if it's a desire, you could spend decades trying to fulfill it. And then what? Where are you? 10, 20, 30 years later. Some spend an entire life. And then you're gone, out of this body. People will care for a few days, maybe weeks and months, and if you're lucky, years. And then you're forgotten about. It's over. So we have to question how we spend our time and what is a desire and what is a need. And then from these attractions, raga, we have dvesha. We push things away. We have aversions. And we do this constantly, back and forth. We chase this and then we push it away. We grab this for our selfish needs, people, places, and things, and then we discard them and replace them because they're not fulfilling us any longer. And we see this sadly in relationships, in marriages. If a person isn't getting what they need from another, then they replace that person, even though they have made commitments to that person and offered their loyalty to that person and their love. And we think that this is sustainable, that life is just simply about fulfilling our needs and desires. No. The highest purpose, first and foremost, is to recognize that we're a soul, that what is within us is within all living things. Even animals have souls. And stop this yo-yo of back and forth. Grab, take, discard, over and over. And we can see that even in our economy, in our society, how we just consume and consume and consume. We buy and buy and buy and buy. And our economy in the West, in the American world, is based on consumption, spending. That's what determines the success of our markets. If people don't keep consuming and spending, then we don't have abundance as defined by the Western world. But if you look at the cycles in the markets, in the financial markets, they repeat themselves over and over again. I love the work of a particular financial specialist named Ray Dalio, who started, and I believe it is still one of the largest hedge funds. And he says, and he's studied this in the cycles of finance and currencies, that these cycles repeat themselves. The issues that we see in financial markets throughout the world come, they go, and then they come again. And so this is that raga, that dvesha, that back and forth. And the last of these kleshas, these afflictions, so again, it's avidya, ignorance, ignoring our true essence, ashmita, egoism, developing conditions of the mind and associations with things that we are not, raga, attractions, chasing all types of desires, and dvesha, aversions, pushing things away, discarding things, consuming, trashing. And lastly, abhinivesha, clinging to things, clinging to material things, clinging to ideas, belief systems, concepts, terms, associations. And so all of these things are limitations of the mind, obstructions of the mind. And they inhibit our capacity, our ability to use the mind as a tool, as an instrument. Again, the mind is not what we are. The body is not what we are. We must use them in an efficient way as instruments to harness our ability to elevate our consciousness, to expand it into a greater dimension, and remove these kleshas, these afflictions, with the sadhana, the spiritual disciplines, creating a spiritual life. And it's a balance. We're not saying discard the material world. We're not saying become irresponsible and live in a cave. No, we're saying live and work in the world. Enjoy the world. If you're going to be a bogey and enjoy your senses and enjoy your social life, family life, and the beauty of the world, that's perfectly fine. But also remember, we're all yogis. We're all seeking to unite with something, with one truth that pervades all living traditions, all religions are seeking that truth. It is said in the Rig Veda, the scriptures speak of it by many names, but there is one truth. This wisdom is universal. It is for everyone. It is not just for those that drink chai and are darker skinned that live in India. No. It is for everyone to find this freedom and the sameness that is samadhi. Samadhi is the same. Recognizing, absorbing our consciousness into that pure consciousness that sustains this entire world. And thus we reach that state of freedom. This is the freedom. This is the state of Sat Chit Ananda, of having life that is truthful, that is honest, that follows its true purpose, having consciousness and abiding in the realm of consciousness, being aware, cultivating that relationship with pure consciousness. It's within us and within all life. The whole world is sustained by consciousness. So truth, chit, consciousness, ananda, bliss, our true essence is to have life, light, and love in balanced form. May we all embrace more discipline in our life, bring in our spiritual practices, and let it begin on the platform, on the cornerstone of self-study, swadhyaya, of vairagya, dispassion, and having a little more detachment and some rebellion to the world. You don't want to become the world. Look at the world. Is that what you want to become? Is that what we want to follow? No. And practice consistently. Be consistent in your disciplines, in how we treat others, and live a divine life. So I thank you all again for your support of the Satsanga, and I look forward to seeing you again. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace in your life, peace in the lives of others, and peace in nature.